Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today's sales webinar. My name is Peter Bindle. I'm the sales marketing specialist here at Vendasta, and today we are going to be talking about the importance of a well-designed website. Now, websites are important for every business. That's something that we've been going over for the past couple weeks now. It's a message that Vendasta we've been talking about these past couple weeks. And really, we're getting to the idea of that just having a website isn't enough. It also matters what is on your website. An ugly website can be a really great way to kind of uh, shoot yourself in the foot because you might have put all this work into a website, but the website content really needs to be geared towards making the consumer want to interact and engage with it. So in this webinar, we're going to take a look at what not to do when creating a website, and we'll kind of show you what to do instead. So websites have kind of a variety of problems that will cause you to have trouble finding traction. But the biggest, most common issue, believe it or not, is actually having an ugly or hard to use website, and it can really kill a website's success. So if you guys are here on this webinar, it's probably for one of a couple reasons. Maybe you want to learn how to optimize your website for kind of the best consumer engagement and interaction, or you're worried that you have some websites that are ugly and you came here for maybe some peace of mind to find out that they aren't. Or maybe just the title was catchy and kind of made you go, oh, I wonder what this is about. No matter what the reason is for why you're here, um, we're going to take a look and kind of take a look at some of the worst websites out there so that you know what not to do. So I have some examples here. You can take a look at them. You can also browse to them yourself if you want to experience them in all their glory. But basically, with these, we know that these websites are trying to look bad, um, and that your website can't possibly look this bad. But if you went to one of these websites, what's the chance that you actually scrolled all the way through it or read all the content? There could very well be a link on one of these websites that offers you, say, $1 million if you click this link. But a lot of people probably wouldn't have walked away with even a penny because there's so much content, it's everywhere. Who knows what's a link, what you can click? There's so many different things. And the reason why this is because about 38% of consumers will actually stop engaging with the content if it's unattractive or anything like that. So you can think of your own website content for a moment, or maybe your clients, and if someone felt the same way you just felt about these websites that we're looking at, uh, do you think they would stay and interact with your website if they had any of the same feelings that you had looking at these websites? Now, yours might not be as bad, but still, if it's not well designed, uh, they might not interact further with a website. So we've definitely seen some examples of some ugly websites, but how do you avoid having an ugly website? So start by thinking about all the things that you've hated on a website that you've visited in the past. If you kind of make a little list in your head of things that you find unappealing in a website, there's a good chance that some of the examples coming up here will actually be on your list. And if they weren't on your list, then this is a great time to build that list, because these are some of the top things to avoid on a website that is your own or clients' websites. And you'll really want to be aware of these key factors. So the first one is an ugly domain. And the big problem with ugly websites can also be an ugly name. So here we have a really good example of, would you find it easier to go to a website with a simple domain, something like example.com? It's easy to remember, there's nothing really confusing, you just write example.com. Or there's the example of random website 123.org/data 0184/net. It's convoluted. And so if your URL is one that is very complicated, hard to remember, it's going to affect the attractiveness of the website in maybe a different way than people traditionally think. It's not going to be easy to remember. So you might be saying, hey, I Google everything, or lots of people Google a website to get to it, and you don't have to worry about the URL. And the idea behind this is, if it's a common website that people want to go to again, or say they're going to it every day, you don't want to be Googling that website every day. You want to be able to just type in the URL. And you're better off having a website that people can remember if they choose to. And a consumer's first impression of a website is 94% design related. It's a statistic we talked about in past webinars. So some of the people in that category want to also have a neat and tidy website to go to, because this is just another example of some design choices. Easy domain is just as much a part of design as anything else. So the next one is one we've talked about a couple times here, but again, it's the long loading times. Consumers hate waiting. So a really good example is if in this webinar, I just stopped talking and I just left you hanging. That would be kind of a way to put it in perspective, but if you have a website that's taking long to load, there's a great chance that people are going to hit back. I actually perfectly have an example of this even just from yesterday. There was an advertisement on Facebook while I was browsing on my phone that I wanted to check out a little bit more. And I clicked on the link, and the page loaded about halfway and stalled halfway. So I kind of waited for a little bit, but it was definitely taking even more than 5 seconds. So I hit back, and then, because I was actually quite interested in what this advertisement was, I clicked it again, and it still wasn't loading. I went further to even turn off my Wi-Fi and try it through cellular in case my Wi-Fi was having a problem, but it just wouldn't load, and then eventually I did just abandon it. Now, this was for me, someone that was really, really interested in it, but I eventually did abandon. If people are just kind of minorly interested in whatever page they're going to, if it's taking a long time, there's a really good chance that they will just abandon it and go to another website. So this is another element of design that people really care about, and if it's going to take a long time, people are going to go elsewhere. And this is even worse if you have an online store or anything like that, because these are people that could potentially want to buy something right there and then, but if it's not loading quickly or there's trouble, they can leave it right away. And if you are having trouble with websites loading or anything like that, I will do a shameless plug for our Website Pro hosting. If you have WordPress sites that you're looking to have hosting, Website Pro is great. It's nice and quick. take a look at it in the marketplace. It's definitely worth consideration for hosting your websites. So the next one, and this one really relates directly to design, is a complicated or overwhelming interface. So basically, this is the idea of, does your website have too many buttons or elements on it? Are people being bombarded with information? We as humans were trained to ignore huge amounts of like website content, basically due to all of the advertisements that we see on a lot of websites. We've been trained to kind of block it all out. So if there are way too many elements, too many buttons, there's a chance that we will naturally block it out like we do with advertisements on other websites. So you want to keep it simple and focus on important topics or focal points that people can engage with. With 85% of consumers abandoning a site due to poor design, hiding that crucial information in a bunch of text or buttons or links is going to make you lose consumers that are viewing websites. So really try to make things clean, easy. If you do have a button, make it one button that is very clearly a button that has that isn't going to be jumbled with a bunch of other information. Clean design is really important here, and just like those examples we saw with, I mean, those are quite extreme, but you don't want too many things to click here or there. Clean design is quite important. So the next one is automatic music or videos, and this is a pretty common one. Often people, when they're browsing the web, are listening to music. They have it playing in the background. They have something going on their computer. And then you notice that little speaker up in a tab or something like that, because something has started automatically playing. A lot of people's first inclination when they hear sound other than the sound they want to be listening to or giving them a fright, they will click the exit on that tab without even going to the tab or looking at the website. And that's basically down to about 33% of consumers saying that auto-playing a video or audio on a website annoyed them. So there's people that will just click that out. I know I personally have done it, and I would be willing to guess that a few of you have done that as well. And with that, it's something that even major tech companies are have acknowledged as an issue as well. Apple is a good example. In their Safari browser, they introduced a feature very recently that actually stops videos from autoplaying. That being said, you can't rely on that because that is just one web browser. There are many other web browsers that won't do this automatically. And even if you have videos on your main page, if you don't have them auto-playing, it will at least give people the opportunity to press the play button on their own and at the very least stop their music so that they aren't getting a jumble of sounds together. That way it will be a much more pleasant user experience than having a bunch of things playing at one time. Now, the next one here is a website that doesn't scale. And I'm not talking about scaling as in people actually going to the website, having a huge number of people. I'm talking about scaling as in being able to go from desktop to tablet to mobile. It's unlikely that you probably only view websites on your computer. Nowadays, most people are viewing websites mobile. And so with that, it's often a poor experience if you are on a desktop or if you're on a mobile phone and you're getting a desktop experience where you have to zoom in, scroll over, try to click tiny little links or buttons, or you're trying to look at a picture, get some text into the frame, you're kind of poking about the screen to see that full line of text. So basically, what you want to do here is make sure that your website kind of blends and twists to fit every kind of screen there is. And that's called responsive web design. And it's very important for this exact reason of experience, good design. And if people actually are looking at your website and don't realize that it's operating any differently on, say, their phone or their tablet than their computer, this is a very good sign of a very good responsive website. Is if you can't even really tell that it's different, something's different, it's displaying better, but the general functionality of the website is still there regardless of which device you're on. Now we're going to get kind of into the actual content that is on a website, and one of the first things that a website might not have is the contact information. So a website's a website's purpose is really important in this. If they have an online shop, or if it's part of if their goal is to drive sales, if you go to somebody's website and find their product or service interesting, you want to take those next steps. But what are you supposed to do if you can't find that phone number, address, anything like that? It's very often you will just go somewhere else. So that's why you need to keep that purpose in mind. Is if it's their goal is to drive sales, you need a way to actually send people to your clients. So that's where having that contact information, like phone number, address, those types of details are very important to have on the website. Because 65% of consumers want to see the contact information on the website's actual homepage, or even on every single page, just somewhere, because tons of people will be viewing your website on their phone. And so when they're looking at a website, phones will make phone numbers an item that you can just click and then you can call them right away. Or if there's an address, it will put that into maps right away. And so that's one of the most major reasons that you would want to have the contact information on there. But it can also help with SEO. Taking advantage of kind of getting the contact information can help raise your client's website higher in search results. So the next one here is having a website that doesn't have an opt-in newsletter. So if you don't have an opt-in newsletter, without kind of going into a bunch of details about inbound marketing and what having people sign up to a newsletter means, email subscribers receive on average about 416 commercial messages a month. So really make sure that yours stands out. It will save you a lot of money sending a newsletter to people that have specifically put their information in. They've actually made they're actually voicing that they would like marketing material from you if they've filled out a form for the newsletter. And it's much better than serving a bunch of ads to a bunch of people that don't actually want your service. A newsletter really allows them to focus on people that have voiced that they do want marketing information or just more details from a newsletter. And the next one is one that we talked a little bit about last week as well, but it's the idea of a website not having a blog. So oftentimes companies in almost every sector can actually benefit from having a blog, uh, but it really depends what you're offering. So if you think about it this way, if you Google something like how often do my gutters need to be cleaned, or uh, which toothpaste helps protect enamel best, uh, is your client's website going to show up when these types of things are searched? If not, it might be because there's no blog, and this is where blog content can really help, because it can help with those questions that people are asking Google. If you have the right kind of content in your blog, that can help businesses show up, and it really helps with Google ranking if you do have a blog that has that content that's relevant to what your client is selling and what your client's customers are searching for. And the last thing I want to talk about here is an About Us page. And it is similar to the contact information, but it's kind of giving the idea of what your website is saying to the consumer. So it should be something kind of near the logo, but it could be a company slogan, mission statement, basically anything that will kind of stop people from having to dig in your about what your client or your business is about. So a really good example of this would be a company called Tree Cutters, and then having something underneath it or near it saying a residential tree pruning service, because tree cutters isn't necessarily obvious at first glance. People might guess that it's about tree pruning, but it could be about a company that is in deforestation, or maybe it is a company that cuts down whole trees when really they are only into pruning trees and not actually removing trees. So just giving a quick kind of tagline there, having the business's tagline near on the About Us page will really help um, people from having to really dig into the website or try to research what the company is about. And so when you have the logo, having that little blurb will help make some clarity. And then on the rest of the About page, you can further make that information clear, tell their story, what the company does, where it came from, how many generations it's been around, to kind of help distinguish their local business from another faceless corporation. So with that, you have the logo with kind of a slogan as a quick way to know what they're about, and then that About page should have all the details so that they can get a good feel, but having it all in one place so that people do not have to go searching around figuring out what that business is about. So that is everything that I had today. Your website really is one of the most important web marketing tools, your website or your client's website. So it's really important to make sure that you're not showing kind of an ugly face to any prospective clients. So I will open it up to questions now here. I will try to answer them as best I can. If I do not have the answer, I will be able to get your partner success manager in touch with you to answer any questions I'm unable to. So I'll just look here to see if we have any questions. Feel free to enter them in the question box. Okay, so it doesn't look like we have any questions. So I want to thank everyone for coming to today's webinar. So kind of a question, kind of a statement here. In theory, can SEO network provide an alternative to blogging? It definitely can. Yeah, that's exactly it. SEO Network is one of, for anyone that doesn't know here, SEO Network is one of our marketplace products. And SEO Network is great if you don't have the time to do that blogging, or can't hire a large group of people to do it. It's a great service. They do all the legwork for you, get all that done so that you can increase SEO, as we were saying there, without having to do that blog work. So yes, SEO Network definitely could be an alternative to blogging. Even just having a couple blog posts can help, but SEO Network is a really great resource for our partners that we have in the marketplace. And I will also say that our partners that have used SEO Network have actually experienced really great success with it. So I definitely recommend checking out SEO Network if you are curious about SEO work and if blogging seems like a bit of a hassle. Thank you for your question. So I believe that is all of the questions we have for today. Thank you again for joining us. And next week, we are going to be talking about, um, oh, sorry, it just slipped my mind here. We're going to be talking about how to sell website services to local businesses. So if you're interested in selling actual services to businesses, definitely join us next week. We'll be going over that in detail. Thank you again for joining us, and we will see you next week.